Oscar Bear Runner and Grace Bear Runner's children. I experienced what took place in the 1970s, 1973, in a different way. When I was growing up, I became very aware of the civil rights movement that was going on in the United States. I was in high school, and I began to hear about the American Indian movement, but that was all new to us. But I want to share with you a dream, because I think it has a lot to do with what actually took place in our society. I guess I can speak for all the Lakotas. I can speak for most of the native peoples throughout the United States. But during the time when I was growing up, even before I began to understand what was happening to us as a people, I began to experience what the civil rights movement was talking about. And it became more clear when I began to hear the voice of the American Indian movement. And I first heard people from the American Indian movement talk in Albuquerque in 1968. I was chosen by my high school to represent my high school at the National Congress of American Indians. I guess I was kind of a nerd in high school, so they kind of selected me to go make these trips and go to these kinds of things. So I didn't really hear any American Indian movement speakers at that time, but I did hear Lee Brightman. Some of you may have heard of him. But he was in the organization called United Native Americans in the Bay Area. And for the first time, I heard him get up on stage and really tell it like it is about what the Bureau of Indian Affairs and all of the federal programs were doing to our people throughout the United States. That was the first time I ever heard that. And I remember that group I was with, the group of people that I was with, were trying to pass a resolution in the National Congress of American Indians saying we didn't want to be part of that. We weren't like those radical people. They were trying to do that. And some of these tribal leaders and the tribal people that worked with the DIA were trying to make us do that. But we didn't do it. And we left there, and when I came back from Albuquerque that time, I was really aware of what actually was taking place, was actually being said. And for the first time, I heard about people talking about the 1851 and the 1868 treaties and all the treaties. That was the first time, because while we were growing up, we went through an assimilation process, a acculturation process. So they didn't want to teach us none of those things. The whole purpose was not for us to learn about those things. So that was kind of the way I grew up. And then on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, there was a different thing that was happening. It was really, really blatant. And I might say some things that might hurt some people here tonight, but that's not my intention. My intention is to tell you exactly what took place and how the American Indian movement came to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. While we were growing up, there were mixed bloods and full bloods on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And people had this general idea that if you were a mixed blood, you would generally accept the policies of the federal government more easily than if you were a full blood. And if you were closer to the full blood and spoke your language, then you were an outcast. You were pushed aside. You were called backward, stupid, dumb, if you spoke your language. But yet, a lot of our people held on to that, held on to the language. So in my family, my older brothers and sisters, and probably myself, or I don't know what happened to me because there's a span in between, there's some more children in there. But they became fluent speakers. And myself, I became a functional speaker. So I can carry on a conversation to a certain extent. When Mary's sitting back here, Mary Horse, I grew up with her. They spoke fluent Lakota in their family. And so that's how I kind of learned. Now you might say, why is all this important? It's important because what was happening was my grandmother said, one of these days, there's going to be a big war that's going to erupt between the mixed bloods and the full bloods on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. It's going to happen. Because the way that group of people is taking us out of our tradition, out of our culture, and our Lakota people are struggling to hold on. So there's going to be a war. And in 1970, when I finished high school, I was immediately eligible to be drafted because the Vietnam War was going on. So I got drafted during the Vietnam era. And right at that time, just before I got drafted, they killed Raymond Yellow Thunder. Some white supremacists killed Raymond Yellow Thunder in Gordon, Nebraska. So my aunt, they called for the American Indian movement. And the American Indian movement came. And we all marched to Gordon. And you should have seen Gordon. White people, they left. Nobody was there. So we could have tore up their businesses or did whatever we wanted to do, but that didn't happen. Instead, we went to the Gordon Auditorium, and the chief of police was the only one who had the guts to be there. And I remember that he made all kinds of promises that Raymond Yellow Thunder's murderers were going to be tried. More than likely, they were going to be convicted, and there would be justice. Well, that happened to a certain extent. But what happened back on Pine Ridge, and I was in the Army during this time, but I still knew what was going on because my mom and dad were telling me. What happened back in Pine Ridge was that the tribal government said they didn't want to have anything to do with the American Indian movement. So that's where the war began. That's how it all started. That's how Wounded Knee started, 1973. And so it didn't really happen between mixed bloods and full bloods. It happened with their ideology in mind. Which way did you choose? Who did you choose? What side did you want to be on? So it wasn't necessarily mixed bloods and full bloods. There was some full bloods who went over to the side. There were some mixed bloods who came over to the side. But that's not how it turned out. It turned out that war did happen. But there was a social revolution that took place, and it affected the whole United States. affected the whole native population of the United States. And that's where this whole movement began in the minds and hearts. That's why they call Wounded Knee February 28th or 29th. Is it Ellie? Liberation Day. Because that's really what happened. People maybe don't go back and give credit to the American Indian movement, but you should. You should always remember. I remember I was very fortunate to, in my vow to Sundance, and I participated in the Sundance, I was able to dance at Greengrass. And I danced with all the American Indian movement leaders, Carter Camp, Russell Means, Clyde Belfort, Bernard Belfort, Dennis Binks. Even Bradman wasn't a part of AIM, but he was there. All the Means brothers. Chief Fusco ran that Sundance. And Whitcomb was the main person who did all of the work. George Amia, Ted Means. And we prayed at that time, in that Sundance, we prayed for Leonard Peltier. We knew what happened. And it was almost like, there was all kinds of efforts made, statewide, regional-wide, the whole United States, International Treaty Council. It went to the United Nations. So don't ever forget what tried. And I went into some of us participated with looking at things a little bit differently. And I chose the route of becoming educated and to learn more about how we can go about protecting our people, protecting our future. Learning about their systems, the economic system of the United States, the banking systems, what they're actually doing, and how we can address that. And everywhere I go, I meet young Native lawyers, young Native PhDs, young natives with master's degrees, all coming from AIM families, and still have it in their hearts. That we'll never forget. I don't know how many years I walked from Wounded Knee, on all these walks, Wounded Knee walks, I walked from Porcupine to Wounded Knee. Every year, blizzard, how many times me and Ted Means walked that 9 miles? Leonard Crowdog. And people, I see this all the time. There's people that have come from the families of people who struggled during Wounded Knee, and they've also gone to death in the spirit world. No matter how I chose to go about and to retain all of this for me, for my future, and how I go around and advocate for what the American Indian movement has done for me, I never forgot. I never will. So today when my niece called me up, just not getting around. My niece called me, she said, Uncle Ramon, did you hear what happened? I said, what? And she said, President Biden gave Leonard Peltier executive clemency. That was the greatest thing for me because I really dreaded getting up today because they were inaugurating Donald Trump. That was a blessing to hear that instead of trying, I didn't want to turn on the TV, any of the news channels, because it was going to all be about Donald Trump. But I heard that message, and it made my whole day. And people don't understand the struggles and the commitment and the sacrifice. That Russell Means, Dennis Banks, Clyde Belcourt, Bernie Belcourt, Carter Camp, Lee Brightman, Ted Means, Bill Means. The commitment that they made changed all the policies in the United States, in the United States government, dealings with Native American people. Some may be significant to you, some may not be. But right after 1973, Wounded Knee, a lot of things started happening. Indian Self-Determination Act, Indian Religious Freedom Act. People don't understand that we couldn't practice. We couldn't practice going to Inipi. We couldn't practice having a Sundance while we were growing up. The only time we had a Sundance was they let our tribe have a Sundance when I was growing up for the tourists. So that's why it used to be called the Oglala Sioux tribe or the Pioneers Sundance. Because they allowed it to happen for the tourists. So the Sundance used to happen beginning at maybe 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning and then go till noon. And then they shut it down so that the powwow could start in the afternoon on the same ground. So when the American Indian movement came in, that all changed. That stopped. Pretty soon, all of our spiritual leaders were given recognition. All our medicine men, our spiritual leaders were able to stand up. For the first time, they had the strength to go out and start conducting our ceremonies, start conducting all the things that we were deprived of. For our spiritual development came back. And that was all because of the American Indian movement. So those of you who are here today, always remember that. Because I'm telling you the truth. When we were in those days, it was really bad. I was in the military, so I know how to, of course, defend myself and carry a weapon. That's what we had to do those days. It was bad. We got in a lot of trouble because we were defending ourselves. We went to a lot of the border towns. These white supremacists were very blatant. So we didn't run. We stood up to them. They had rifles, we pulled our rifles out. So today I'm very, very proud and very, very happy. Makes my heart soar like a hawk because Leonard Peltier was released. Thank you very much.